Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today, we are diving into the book Snowball, Warren Buffett and the Business of Life. This isn't just another dry investing manual, and it's definitely not just a highlight reel of a billionaire's greatest stock market hits. This is Alice Schroeder's definitive, fully authorized biography of the world's most famous investor. The crazy thing is, Buffett gave Schroeder totally unprecedented access. We're talking his life, his files, his family, but he had one very strict, non-negotiable rule. If her version of a story differed from his, she had to use the less flattering version. So what we get is this incredibly intimate, warts and all portrait of a really, really complicated guy. And that brings us to the whole idea of the snowball. It's the beating heart of the book, and really, it's the central metaphor for our entire explainer today. You see, Warren Buffett didn't just look at this as some cute little saying. It was his fundamental operating system. Because when you have the right conditions, that wet snow, and you have enough time, that long hill, well, momentum just takes over. But the true genius of Schroeder's book is showing us that this doesn't just apply to money. No way. Your habits, your relationships, your reputation, they all compound over time in the exact same way. Okay, let's dive into this compounding mindset. To really get Buffett, you have to understand how he viewed the world as a kid. From a super early age, he wouldn't just look at a $10 bill and see 10 bucks. Because his brain was so wired for compounding, he'd look at that $10 and see the $1,000 it could turn into 20 or 30 years down the road. Every single dollar spent today was literally robbing his future self of a fortune. It's an intense, almost hyper-focused way to view the world, right? But man, it gave him an absolute unmatched psychological edge. To see how this builds across the incredibly long runway of his life, just look at his early timeline. That long hill we just talked about, well, Buffett started rolling his snowball really early. As a young teenager, he wasn't just, hanging out after school. He was running multiple small businesses. We're talking massive paper routes, buying and placing pinball machines in local barbershops. Get this, at age 13, he filed his first tax return and actually deducted his bicycle as a business expense. These early hustles absolutely set the foundation. They provided that initial capital that he'd steadily compound into one of the largest fortunes in human history over the next 7 decades. And this brings us to a really crucial realization about his success. Because Buffett's true superpower wasn't just being good at math. There are plenty of math geniuses on Wall Street, right? His superpower was this extreme, almost unnatural patience. He had the emotional discipline to sit on his hands and wait for the absolute perfect opportunities. He never, ever felt the need to force an action just for the sake of looking busy. He was perfectly content to plant a seed and literally wait decades just to sit in its shade. That immense patience is deeply tied to this next concept, which is probably one of the most famous takeaways from Schroeder's book. Buffett operates strictly on what he calls an inner scorecard. Basically, this means he judges his success and his choices entirely by his own internal standards. He just doesn't care about society's expectations or what other people think of him. Most of the world, on the other hand, runs on an outer scorecard, right? Chasing status symbols just to impress other people. So I want to challenge you as we go through this explainer. Is it actually possible for us to maintain a pure inner scorecard in our daily lives? Or do you kind of need billions of dollars in the bank to truly stop caring what others think? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this exact figure right here, $31,500. That is the exact cost of the house in Omaha that Warren Buffett bought way back in 1958. And despite having a net worth that stretches into the tens of billions of dollars today, he still lives in that exact same house. He didn't upgrade to some flashy mega mansion when he hit his first million, or even his first billion. His inner scorecard told him he liked his house, so why move? And you see this frugality bleeding into every part of his totally eccentric daily routine. The guy drives himself to the office, he grabs McDonald's for breakfast on the way, and get this, he famously bases which breakfast sandwich he buys on how the stock market is performing that morning. He drinks multiple cans of cherry Coke every single day and eats, well, pretty much like a 6-year-old. It brilliantly illustrates that immense wealth does not inherently require a lavish, complicated lifestyle. He entirely avoids all those modern billionaire lifestyle traps simply because they hold zero value to him. So the crucial point here is how this extreme personal discipline translated to his professional evolution. Buffett started out as a classic investor, sure, but the snowball really turned into an avalanche when he took control of a failing textile company called Berkshire Hathaway. He essentially stopped weaving cloth and started weaponizing the company's insurance float. Now, float is just the premiums collected before claims actually have to be paid out. He took this massive pool of essentially free capital and used it as the engine to buy up other incredible businesses, totally supercharging his compounding machine. And as he was building this massive engine, he operated on two incredibly simple, yet ruthlessly enforced golden rules. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. It sounds playful, maybe even overly simplistic, but this formed the absolute bedrock of his discipline. It meant he demanded a massive margin of safety on every single investment, protecting his downside above absolutely everything else. But, to get to the absolute top, Buffett had to unlearn some things too. His early mentor, Ben Graham, taught him what's known as cigar butt investing. This basically meant finding mediocre companies that were trading so cheap, it was like finding a discarded cigar butt on the street. Sure, it's gross, but it's got one good free puff left in it. You're buying dollar bills for 50 cents. But it was his partnership with Charlie Munger that shifted his entire philosophy. Munger convinced him that it was far better to buy a truly great business at a fair price than a fair business at a great price. Buying See's Candies was the ultimate turning point here. It proved once and for all that paying up for quality was the real key to long-term wealth. This shift perfectly aligns with his overarching belief about value. As he famously puts it, price is what you pay, value is what you get. And to Buffett, the absolute most valuable asset a company, or a person for that matter, can possess is a stellar reputation. He understands that reputation is a compounding asset. It takes literal decades to build up, but it only takes moments to completely lose. And let me tell you, he guarded his reputation with a ferocity that easily matched his financial discipline. The absolute ultimate proof of this came in 1991 during the Salomon Brothers bond trading scandal. Wall Street was in a total panic, and the firm was literally on the brink of collapse. Buffett, who was a major investor, stepped in as interim chairman to save the whole thing. He delivered this incredibly stark message to the employees. He essentially said, if you lose money for the firm, I will be understanding. But if you lose a shred of reputation for the firm, I will be ruthless. It was an absolute masterclass in crisis management, showing exactly how fiercely he protected that compounded trust. But this brings us to a profound turning point in our explainer. Up to now, we've seen the financial genius, the patience, the intense discipline. But it really begs the question, to be the absolute best in the world at one specific thing, do you inherently have to sacrifice being present in all other areas of your life? Is it actually possible to roll a snowball this massive without crushing something else in its path? Well, this is where the book gets pretty heavy, and where Alice Schroeder pulls absolutely no punches. See, Buffett's ability to completely detach and compartmentalize was his greatest strength during a stock market panic. He could literally sit in a quiet room reading annual reports while the financial world burned outside. But that exact same emotional compartmentalization, it was his biggest flaw at the family dinner table. His intense, all-consuming obsession with the business often left him entirely emotionally absent from the people closest to him. The human cost of rolling the world's biggest financial snowball was this deeply unconventional and sometimes pretty painful family life. His emotional distance eventually drove his first wife, Susie, who deeply, deeply loved him, to leave Omaha and move to San Francisco. She just needed to escape the isolation of living with his obsession, yet they stayed married. And in a remarkably unusual arrangement, Susie actually orchestrated for a woman named Astrid Menks to move in and take care of Warren. On top of all this, his laser focus meant he had a complicated, often distant relationship with his own children as they were growing up. Which makes this quote perhaps the most important one in the entire book. Late in life, after amassing just unimaginable wealth, Buffett revealed his ultimate metric for a successful life. It wasn't the size of his portfolio or his latest acquisition. He said success is measured by how many of the people you want to have love you actually do love you. It creates this stark, somewhat haunting contrast, doesn't it? The man who basically conquered capitalism realized that the only scorecard that truly mattered at the very end was entirely based on human connection. So, what do we actually take away from all this? Warren Buffett's life is a brilliant, totally unparalleled study in compounding. We see exactly how patience, extreme discipline, and a pure inner scorecard can generate just miraculous results over time. But Schroeder's biography makes it incredibly clear that this level of extreme success comes with profound personal sacrifices. It really forces us to take a hard look in the mirror and completely reevaluate our own definitions of success and of balance. Because ultimately, momentum goes in the direction you push it. You can compound money, for sure, but you can also compound neglect. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. What are you willing to sacrifice to build your own snowball? Thank you for watching, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.